This, my friends, is what they call a lap anvil, and you would lay it across your legs sitting down and make horseshoes and stuff with it. No, just kidding. This is more of a jeweler grade anvil, I believe, and it was issued to me by Andrew Alexander. He's the owner of it, along with the Blacksmith Museum out of Dallas, Texas. If you don't know Andrew, you need to check his Instagram page out. He's got a huge inventory of everything he has there. But anyway, the height of this was a little taller than my standard flask, so I ended up having to double the boxes. I'm not going to put parting dust in between. I want these both to bind together as one big block of sand. But we are using an actual casting for the pattern, which is not going to leave a very good finish, so I didn't worry about even going with the facing sand on this particular casting. I started off coping this down on the side as I do all my molds, but honestly this thing is so big and cumbersome with two boxes stuck together, I ended up having to lay it over on its back. But I'm cutting a 45-degree bank of sand all the way around the perimeter of the casting down to the parting line. This is the initial step of it. I'm still going to have to go in and tweak it by cutting a flat plane for the riser block to set in, along with bringing down that plane where the runner's going to go. Someone asked me the other day on my comments about my air pressure. I don't ever look at my gauges. I just go by feel. I hold that nozzle about 8 to 10 inches away from the mold, and I adjust the airflow to where it'll blow off all the debris and loose particles without tearing up the facing sand. All right, so like I said, I've got to cut a little flat plane, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it down level with the castings flange there. And then I'll have to cut a little relief angle in the bank of it behind there to keep that from hooking in the sand when I pull the coat. I'm going to go ahead and bring this bottom out a little wider than what the imprint shows to give me a little bit of a shoulder all the way around the coat when I pull this apart. If I don't do that, I'll have a very sharp cone with a very fine pointed edge going around the perimeter of the base of the riser, and I don't want that. That'd be too fragile. So if I widen the base of that riser out, giving it a shoulder on the other side, it'll hold up better. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that point of it. I'm not pulling the casting at this point. I'm just loosening it. I've stated this before in other videos. When you do this and you steadily vibrate it before you round the second stage of this, it will jar the sand loose that might want to go up above the equator of the parting line. So this helps enable a very clean parting line with virtually no flashing. And I don't need it to be a sloppy fit in there, but I do want to see a little movement. And if you look down on the end, I'm fixing to zoom in here, and you'll be able to see just a little bit of movement there. See the crack form and then close? All right, that's what I want. I'm going to blow the excess away. Double checking everything, make sure I don't have any hooks that would catch the cope when I go to release it. And now I'm forming a little low area for my runner, which I won't be cutting at this point. I'm going to cut that in the cope. And I'm putting a little angle on the back there to give it some release. We were talking about comments. I really appreciate the comments I'm getting from you guys. It may take several days to read them, but I do see them, and I try to reply as much as I can. But if it's not a question, I'll generally just click like just to let you know that I did see it. I really enjoy hearing you old foundrymen, well-seasoned guys, telling me about the stories that you've and experiences you've had years ago in the foundry. That's really interesting to me, and keep them coming. Since I coped down so deep on this mold, I need to go ahead and put that sprue down deeper than I would normally go. An additional 2 or 3 inches anyway. And to be a casting, I was really surprised how well the mold held together as I separated this. Very clean indeed. So we're not going to have much flashing at all on this. All right, so now I'm cutting my runner. Next will be the gates. Once we do that, we'll remove the pattern. I'll check for any feathered edges right here where I'm cutting the gates, where they go up against the pattern. And I'll take my finger and lightly break any feathered edge off, blow that away, and we'll be able to cut the sprue or cut the pouring basin and put this together and pour it. This is that feathered edge I was telling you about. Very clean. Okay, now we're going to start on the cope, and you see that shoulder I'm talking about that goes around the base of that riser? If I hadn't cut that shoulder in the drag section earlier, it would have been a very sharp point coming up, and it would have been very fragile and broke off, possibly leaking. Here I found a soft spot in the mold. I'm fixing that, trying to press the sand down the best I can and not deform it. Then I will blow it out, put the vents in, put the basin in, and get it together. Now, because this is an anvil, I didn't think using my regular standard gray cast iron composition would be suitable for this application. So what I did was I added some nickel to this. On a 40-pound pour, I went with 55 grams of nickel. So hopefully that will be enough strength to keep any possible splintering from going on up around the edges of this anvil face. And It's nickel's not recommended if you've got a machine apart, but for this application it would be ideal, I think. Because of some other molds I had to make, it took about a week before I got to melt these and pour them. So here I'm drying out my mold weights. I've got them stacked up like a chimney to drive off condensation with a propane burner up underneath. These particular molds here, I will be doing a video on at a later point. This is for a courthouse restoration project, and I have two different size castings. What will make this video interesting is they all get cores. 30 of them get blind cores, 10 of them get a full core all the way through. The pour went surprisingly smooth, virtually no fires. Well, two of them, but you know, it's not too bad. The main thing is I didn't have any sloppy pours this time. Everything went smooth. Okay, so I'm fixing to inoculate it with the nickel. That's it right there. I'm shooting it down the tube and I'm pushing it under the dross, but I'm not actually stirring it. It may appear that, but I'm not. And the next mold coming up is the lap anvil. And I know that this is that same composition I'm pouring in another casting, but it requires no machining as well, so I'm okay with it. So these are going to set in the molds for 24 hours, and I will be breaking them the next day. Of course, I'm not going to be showing you the other castings until a later date. This thing is heavy. Keep in mind there's iron in it as well. But the casting turned out really good. No shrinkage. Decent finish considering I didn't put any facing sand on it. And I'm fixing to needle scale it and knock the facing sand off of it and leave the ash on. The ash will be removed at the last process, which is wire wheeling it, and I'm not going to be able to show you that part of it because I don't know what happened to that part of the video. But you'll see the end results. This grinder was giving me fits. It wasn't working that day. My brother happened to be over at my dad's. I took it over to him to let him look at it. He's pretty sharp on this kind of stuff. After we took it apart and looked it over, he couldn't figure it out. So I gave up, brought it home. I'd already bought a new one the night before from Home Depot. I was going to throw this in the box after I put the thing back together. I decided to plug it in one more time, and voila, the thing's working fine now. So I'll keep the new one for future reference. There's times we need a second grinder anyway. I'm a firm believer in Milwaukee tools, and this really kind of upset me. What I need is a sponsor for abrasives. As many wheels and cutoff wheels and grinders as I go through, yeah, I need a sponsor to send this stuff to me where I can advertise their products. Despite the nickel that I put in here, they actually ground really well. It didn't seem to be any harder than normal, so maybe I didn't put enough in there to affect the hardness. Okay, this is it. This is the casting we made. This is the casting Andrew Alexander had supplied. And keep in mind that when you're using a casting as a pattern, see how rough that is? You're never going to be able to replicate that finish on the existing one. I ended up having to sand this down some to get it uniform. There was no shrinkage. Turned out looking pretty good, I think. This will need to be surface ground. I'm assuming that's what they did here. They may have ran that across a blanch grinder. I don't know how you would hold it, but yeah, you could put it in a big vise like that. Like and subscribe if you haven't already to see all upcoming projects coming in the door here at Windy Hill Foundry. Stay safe, healthy, and I hope you have a good day. It's another dollar. I wonder if it's Dollar's little brother. Hey, what you doing?